My name is Alan Scott and I'm the author of the Storm series set of books. Since I've been doing the recordings of my books, I've had quite a few people ask me to do something for Solomon Pace, who, those of you who don't know him, Solomon is my baddie, I suppose you could call him. Adversary would perhaps be a better word throughout my books. I've done a lot of short stories for Solomon. In fact, there's a book of short stories too, in fact. But I've hummed and hawed over which one to do. So I've decided to do The Black Blade. As I think it shows Solomon off at his best, or is that his worst? The Black Blade by Alan Scott. A short story containing Solomon Pace. Solomon Pace stood on the high battlements of Castle Black and watched the grey, heavy clouds make their steady and unstoppable way across a bleak and desolate sky. He sighed despondently. "This place is so depressing." He muttered to himself, "I do miss the warm sunshine and clear blue skies of home." Shaking his head, he started to pace the stone walkway that ran alongside the ramparts, his cane held behind his back with both hands. As he paced, Solomon cast an occasional glance towards the road, which twisted and turned through the black heath that surrounded the castle, his sharp eyes searching for movement. After half an hour, the wind started to gab and spots of rain started to hit the castle walls. Solomon looked up at the sky with an exasperated look of disgust and raised the large collar on his heavy leather coat. Swinging his cane over his shoulder, Solomon started towards the stairs that would take him to the courtyard and into the dry and the warmth of the keep. Just as he reached the top of the stairs, he threw one last look over the battlements and cursed. "Damn it!" There, making his frantic way along the road, was a man, one of his men. Leaning on the cold stone battlements as the rain steadily got heavier, Solomon peered intensely at the man for a moment, before quickly scanning the surrounding area. Interesting, he thought. Where are the rest of them? Solomon sat at the head of a large table, his cane resting on top, in the grand hall of Castle Black. Behind him stood two men, James Falstaff, the previous owner of Castle Black, and Black Monroe, the closest thing Solomon had to a right-hand man, as well as one of Solomon's fellow exiles from across the water. The door to the grand hall opened, and a drenched man walked in. "Shut the door if you be so good," said Solomon. "Yes, master," replied the man. "Sit," said Solomon, as he indicated a seat at the opposite end of the table from him. The man hesitantly sat down. "Now that you're sitting comfortably, would you be so kind to explain to me why you're 2 days late, and where the rest of your 10-man patrol are?" "They're all dead, master. Killed by a monster, and the restless dead." Solomon leaned forward and rested his chin on his steepled fingers. Suddenly he was very interested in the man's tale. "A monster? And the restless dead, you say?" "Yes, master." The man swallowed hard. They slaughtered us." Solomon gave a tight smile. "Details. First of all, we need details. Where did this take place?" "The village of Two Fords, which is about a day's march northeast of here, near the border of Yedris." "That region has always had its myths and legends of the restless dead," added Falstaff. Ignoring Falstaff, Solomon continued, "This monster? Tell me what he looked like." "It was human-shaped, dressed in fine clothes that had seen better days, wore a billowing cloak and a huge black sword, which it wielded as if it weighed nothing." Did you see its face? Yes, master. And? It had coal-black evil eyes, pale skin, and fangs. Solomon leaned back and rolled his eyes to the ceiling. A moonstalker, said Bakram. Sounds like it, replied Solomon. What time was the attack? Asked Bakram. It was at dusk. Yep. A moonstalker, confirmed Solomon. It spoke, master. Did it have anything interesting to say? Asked Solomon. The man looked bemused for a moment. It said, Die, mortals. I am the Black Blade, and this village is under my lordship. It then ordered its minions to attack us. Ah, yes, its minions, said Solomon. What did they look like? They were dead, risen. Men with death wounds were walking. Some had their guts hanging out, while others, you could see the whites of their bones as their flesh rotted off their corpse-like bodies. So yeah, some zombies. Solomon reached for his cane and gently rolled it back and forth on the table. Master, we must leave the village to him, as is surely now cursed. We cannot beat these. They're already dead, the man said in a frightened voice. Solomon tapped his fingers on the table absent-mindedly. And how exactly did you escape? I was at the back when the attack started. I saw the monster kill 3 men in as many heartbeats. I was rooted to the spot in fear. It was only when the hideous screaming started, as the restless dead, zombies I think you called them, started to attack the remnants of the patrol, that I managed to shake my fear and run. I ran and I ran until I could run no more and collapsed on the ground. After I caught my breath, I noticed that they were not following me, so I made my way back here to report what happened. If you were at the back, then how did you see this black blade so clearly to give me the description you did? Asked Solomon. You see, I have another problem, continued Solomon. As Falstaff said, Two Fords is only a day away. You are 2 days late. So tell me, what did you do in that lost day? The man stood up, his posture changing. He became more arrogant and self-assured. You should have heeded my true master's message, little man. You should have just accepted my story and stayed away from Two Fords. My master, the Black Blade, will now kill you and all your pathetic little men. Little man? Me? Really? Said Solomon in disbelief. The man opened his mouth wide, showing off his 2 long incisors, and hissed at Solomon. Little man, repeated Solomon with a shake of his head. Now you have upset me. You will die, little man, said the newly created moonstalker as he tensed to leap. Solomon clicked his fingers twice, and both the creature's knees shattered. The moonstalker screamed in outrage as it collapsed on the floor. Solomon slowly stood up, retrieved his cane, and made his way around the table. You really shouldn't upset me, little creature, said Solomon. The moonstalker hissed its defiance and lashed out with a clawed hand. Solomon swiftly parried the attack with his cane. Looking the creature in the eye, Solomon smiled coldly and clicked his fingers another 2 times. Both the creature's elbows shattered. Pick this wretch of a creature up and put him on the chair, commanded Solomon. Both Falstaff and Roe reached down, picked up the weakly struggling moonstalker and placed him on the chair. Get some rope, Barkman. Yes, Suleiman, said Blackman, as he turned to leave the room. Until we get the rope, said Suleiman, twisting the handle of his cane slightly before drawing out a thin, strong sword which was sheathed inside. We'll need to find some way of making sure you don't fall off your chair. With that, he thrust the sword powerfully through the Moonstalker's chest and out through the back of the chair, pinning it in place. Black blood bubbled in the creature's mouth before overflowing down its chin. Falstaff watched fascinated. Is that what I think it is? What do you think it is? Asked Solomon. A vampire. I've heard them call that name before. However, where I come from, we call them Moonstalkers. I thought they were a myth. But then again, look what I have become. You are one of the selected few, James. You are De Vere. I'm a shape changer. I'm a man that can turn into a beast, said James. If you don't like it, said Suleiman, raising his hand and wiggling his fingers, I could always... No, I'm happy with what I am, James said quickly. Good, said Suleiman. At least you're still alive, unlike him. The door opened and both men automatically turned their eyes to it and watched Bakram enter carrying a handful of rope. As I was saying, said Suleiman, at least you're still alive. All Moonstalkers are dead. I'll start to tie him up, said Bakram. Suleiman nodded. I'll help, chopped in James. Suleiman sat on the table's edge and watched the pair work as he idly played with his cane. I can never understand the female fascination for Moonstalkers. They seem to think them somehow romantic. Normally women like to have their men alive, smell nice, be capable of having sex, and not to rip the throat out. However, mention a Moonstalker and all of a sudden they become raving necrophiliacs that don't mind bad breath, don't care if the men can't get it up, and will bare their necks and beg to be bitten. I just don't understand. Can't get it up? Queried James. Moonstalkers are dead, and there is no blood flow. No blood flow, no sex, James. There has to be hot, pumping blood for sex, said Suleiman, and I do enjoy having sex, especially with women who have low morals and high skirts. Why? Because they are so much more fun than women with high morals and low skirts, grinned Suleiman. Done, said Bakram, as he and James stepped back. Excellent, replied Suleiman, as he stood up and took hold of the handle of the sword that was sticking out the Moonstalker. With a sharp twist, he pulled it free, wiped the thick black blood that was clinging to the sword and the clothes of the creature tied to the chair. Once clean, he sheathed it back in his cane. Suleiman made himself comfortable on the table edge before speaking again. Moonstalker, at this moment in time you think yourself immortal. You think there is very little that can be done to hurt you. However, you're only 2 days old and no understanding whatsoever of the world in which you exist. You see, there's a war going on, a very old and bitter struggle between those that live over the water and those that live over the sand. Hidden skirmishes have been fought between the two sides here on this miserable land for thousands of years. Each side jostles for position and waiting for the day when the skirmish becomes a full-scale war. However, I won't bore you with the full details. Maybe another time. Though, if you think about it, your local myths and legends and stories will start to make sense. Men that become beasts, the restless dead, not going to the forest at night, etc., etc. The Moonstalker glared and hissed at Suleiman. I do not fear you. Do your worst. Oh, don't worry, I will. You see, my friend, I am not a stupid local that's frightened by the thought of the walking dead. I am Suleiman Pace, a lord from across the water, and I want you to answer my questions. You will get nothing from me, little man. Oh, but I will, little Moonstalker, smiled Pace. Oh, but I will. I'm going to stop the reading there. That's up to about page 5 of the short story. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a taste of Solomon and what he's like. As always, the usual cravat comes into play. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in retrieval systems, or transmitted in any form or means, electronically, mechanically, photocopied, recorded, or otherwise, without the prior permission of the author. That's me. This is a work of fiction. All characters and events portrayed in this book are fictional, and any resemblance to real people or incidents is purely coincidental.